Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Naomi Hicks. I'm one of the directors at UK Sport, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this event today. Welcome to Livery Hall at the Guildhall. A big thank you to the City of London for bringing us together today and for hosting us in this beautiful building. Great to see so many faces, old and new, joining us for the report launch today, the Major Sporting Events and Soft Power Report. It's a really important piece of research in our view. It reiterates the power and potential of major events and the vital contribution they make, not just to society, but to our economy as well. And we're going to hear all about that today. Delighted to have such a breadth of sectors and organisations in the audience with us, and I know many of you gave up your time to participate in the research as part of the consultation, so thank you for sharing your views and your insight, which we'll hear much more of today. We're going to hear first from three guest speakers this morning. So we're going to hear from our Lord Mayor, Vincent Keaveny. We're also going to hear from the Minister of Sport, Nigel Huddleston. And then Peter Arnold from EY will share the report findings and highlights with us. After that, I'm going to invite a selection of panel members onto the stage for a sort of facilitated discussion, and then we will open up the floor for your questions as well before making sure we've got plenty of time for teas and coffees and catch-ups afterwards at the end. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to hand straight over to the Lord Mayor. Thank you very much.
Minister, Chief Commoner, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a very warm, actually literally a very warm welcome to Guildhall, but it's better to be warm this morning than chilly. Thank you so much, Naomi, for your introduction, and thank you to UK Sport, who have worked very closely with us on this project. Now, I would also like to, at this point, thank EY for producing this excellent report. I am so glad that the City of London, alongside our partners at UK Sport, is able to support this important piece of work. There is a long history of sport in London. In fact, we are almost directly above here in the Livery Hall, almost directly above the remains of one of London's oldest sports facilities, if not perhaps its oldest indeed, a Roman amphitheatre where gladiators used to compete. Well, I'm glad to say, I'm sure we're all glad to say, sport has moved on in London since then. Many of you will be aware that the City of London Corporation provides sports facilities across the many open spaces we manage. Perhaps less well known is that in recent years, we have also sought to take a lead in supporting major sports events coming to London and the UK. By doing what we do best, offering up our venues, bringing people together, we hope to contribute to the success of bids and celebrations for high-profile sporting occasions. As an organisation that seeks to support a thriving and diverse economy, we increasingly value the important role played by sport and the sports event industry in the long-term success of the UK economy. We see sport as integral to our national success and global reach, and we are determined that London should be a world centre and a venue of choice for sports events from around the world. Since the experience of the London 2012 Games, and I have to say, just looking at that wonderful photograph on the front of the report, doesn't it bring back some magnificent memories? We have turned our focus to the positive outcomes which major sports events have for London and indeed the whole world, which this report spells out for us very clearly. Its findings are striking. People understand that there are soft power, trade and investment benefits to major sports events, but this report shows us in stark detail what can be achieved when we get our strategy right. We will hear more on this from EY shortly during their presentation of the findings. The report acknowledges that while there is much to be excited about, we just can't sit back and assume this will all happen naturally because we are London or the UK. We need to work together strategically and deliver on a clear set of targets while also learning from each event that we host in the UK. I'm certain this will not only improve the understanding of the positive impacts, but actually, over time, enhance those positive impacts and increase their relevance and their reach in our society. This is what the City of London and UK sport will be getting set for in the months ahead. But we recognise we cannot do this alone. The City Corporation stands ready. We're on our marks, ready to go, to work with our partners from across the sports sector, business and government to build a more targeted and more impactful approach to future sports events. Sport can capture the imagination of the world. We've seen that, we know that. We know from experience that major sports events can bring the attention of the world to the UK and to this great city. So with the global reach which the UK sports sector has, and with our ability to host the best sporting events in the world, and we've no doubt that is the case, let us ensure we make the most of these opportunities to grow trade, attract investment, and enhance our global influence. The City of London is committed to supporting major sports events, to helping the UK get even greater returns in future, and to make sure that everyone benefits from the UK's status as a global sporting superpower. We welcome this report and look forward to taking the next steps alongside UK sport to realise and to maximise those benefits. Now, I'm very pleased to be able to hand over to the Minister for Sport, Nigel Huddleston, MP. We are really grateful to you for attending this event today, and we appreciate the government's support in driving these aims, these shared aims, I'm sure, together in the years to come. Thank you all very much.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Lord Mayor, for that introduction and indeed very warm welcome, which I think we all appreciate after the last few days. I did actually get sledding over the weekend, so I'm very happy. And it's, of course, a pleasure to be here in these beautiful surroundings. Actually, it's been a while since I was here, to launch the soft power trade and investment benefits of major sporting events research, and very interesting and powerful research it is too. I'd like to thank UK Sport and the City of London, E&Y, and all the consultees on this project, including colleagues at the Rugby League World Cup and, of course, the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games for their contributions as well. Now, the government has long championed the wide-ranging benefits of hosting major sports events, as you just mentioned, Lord Mayor. They build stronger communities, improve mental and physical health, and inspire the next generation. And the UK has a world-class reputation, there's no doubt about that, in hosting major sporting events. And this is a credit to the sector, including so many here this morning, and of course, a credit to the many cities that are pivotal in hosting them. And during the pandemic, and of course we all know we're not over this yet, major sporting events, of course, played a really important role in boosting morale when we really needed it and bringing excitement to homes right across the country when we desperately needed it. And after a tough 2 years, the government knows that we can't rest on our laurels and we must continue to build on our recovery and our reputation of being amongst the best in the world at hosting major sporting events. In 2022 alone, we will host a prolific programme of sporting events: the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, which will be the biggest multi-sport event in the UK since London 2012, the World Gymnastics Championships, the UEFA Women's Euros, the Rugby League World Cup, and many others. And alongside the Jubilee and the Unboxed Festival, 2022 will be an incredible year to showcase the country and deliver on our key objectives. And as set out in this report, that will mean maximising all these so-called soft power trade and investment opportunities. And we should never underestimate that whilst we call some of these things soft power, it leads to massive, significant job creation and economic contribution to the economy. The 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games where we've got a business and tourism programme, is just one example of targeted government investment specifically aimed at converting the excitement and the enthusiasm of a major sporting event into trade and tourism benefits. And we must ensure there are many other similar initiatives as we move forward. As you may know, the Chancellor recently announced funding to support bids for the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup, the 2026 Tour de France Grand Départ, and the ongoing feasibility work into the potential UK and Ireland bid to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. And in order to secure this funding, my department worked with UK Sport and key partners to ensure that we demonstrated the breadth and socio-economic benefits that hosting events of this magnitude entails. Now, the report launched today underlines the significant benefits and demonstrates then to the rest of government, the sporting sector, industry, and importantly to the public. And this report expertly highlights how soft power, trade and investment benefits directly help achieve the government's policy goals, such as promoting global Britain, levelling up, job creation and economic growth, not to mention providing opportunities for the UK to bring its influence to bear internationally. And of course, the report concludes that major sporting events in the coming decade have the potential to deliver over £4 billion in soft power trade and investment impact to the UK. And these findings will help support partnerships between the business and the sports sectors to achieve all of these outcomes and more. They will also support the development of our future approach to sport diplomacy and how we can use sport to strengthen the UK's influence as a global power and force for good. We must continue to work together to ensure we apply the findings of this report and capitalise on the pipeline of events over the next 10 years and beyond. And I know that you are all as committed as I am to doing just that. So thank you again for the invitation this morning, and to all those involved in producing this crucial piece of work. It's a timely intervention and will serve to bolster our arguments regarding why it is so crucial that we make the next decade a golden one for sport in the UK. And I'd now like to welcome Peter Arnold from E&Y, who will tell us a little bit more about what they found in the report. Thank you, Peter.
So thank you all and good morning, and I'd just like to say what an honour it is to be presenting the findings of our report, and it's actually fantastic to be doing it in person. I've done so many Zoom calls, I'm sure we all have, where you're staring at a screen. To be able to see people's reactions I think is fantastic. So I'm a partner in EY, I'm also EY's UK Chief Economist. I spend a lot of my time answering questions about inflation or interest rates or GDP. And so again, it's also a pleasure to be here to talk about something that's far more interesting, which is about major sporting events and the contribution that sport can make to our economy. It's been a bit of a journey for us with UK Sport in the City of London. We actually started the work over 12 months ago, but as with many things over the last couple of years, the timing of it's been heavily disrupted by COVID. So again, it's a real relief to finally issue our findings. So let me jump straight in. So what was the exam question? Well, our exam question was really help UK Sport, City of London, and I guess all the stakeholders really understand and attempt to quantify the links between major sporting events, how they can drive soft power, and how in turn those can drive investment and trade benefits, not just to the UK, but to any host nation that seeks to focus on sporting events. And building on that analysis, think around the recommendations that we can make around how those can be maximised and optimised through event delivery. So the work involved an extensive review of pretty much every evaluation of every sporting event that happened in the last 10 years, or it certainly felt like it. But also we engaged with a huge number of stakeholders across all the key areas, so local and central government, sports organisers, sporting bodies, and indeed businesses that are involved in the business of sport. And we were ably assisted by Dr. Simon Rolfe, who works for the University of London. Unfortunately can't be here because he's driving sports diplomacy in Antarctica at the moment, I think. I'm assuming not just to penguins, there may be some other people there as well. So firstly, what do we mean by soft power? Well, if hard power is that kind of traditional military strength or sets of embassies or hard investments. Soft power is that softer cultural influence, the kind of the more nebulous support and links that can be brought up by engagement and by sort of softer interactions. And we know that UK holds significant soft power. The Portland Group ranks UK as number 2 globally for soft power, and that's been built up through history, through cultural links, through the creative sector, but also sport. And sport has been a really key element of UK soft power over the last 10 to 15 years. We only have to think about the Olympics, the success of Team GB, the profile of the Premier League and other major sporting events. It's a key part of the UK's soft power. And we think there's then a virtuous circle where a major sporting event can drive that soft power, build perceptions, which in turn can then drive trade and investment. And then what do we mean by a major sporting event? Well, we were defined in our research as anything that had to be the pinnacle of that particular sport. It was itinerant, so it wasn't a regular event, it was something that happened every few years. It had global appeal and domestic appeal, so mass spectator appeal, and required significant funding to deliver, often government funding to support in its delivery. Now, what it isn't, and what we haven't included, are those kind of regular sporting events. No less important, the kind of the Wimbledons, the Formula Ones of this world, but it was those regular sporting events. Now, the obvious 2 mega events are the Olympic Games and the Men's FIFA World Cup, but it's quite a broad range, and we've also mentioned next year there's quite a good pipeline. We've got the Rugby League World Cup, Commonwealth Games, the Women's Euros, all of those were categorised within our research. And what were our key findings? Well, based on our research and our stakeholder engagement, it was pretty clear that we can demonstrate that sporting events drive soft power, trade and investment through bringing people together, showcasing capability, and building that engagement and growing the perception of the country as a consequence of that sporting event. And all the people we spoke to, all the contributors, the stakeholders recognised it, they acknowledged it, they knew it was there, they knew it was available. However, the key finding is it's not normally formally captured. It's not built into those evaluation frameworks, with the noticeable exception of London 2012 and the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. So it's not been captured. So our other key finding was, in order then to build on this, it is really important that it is built into the strategic objectives of sporting events in order to identify, capture, plan, monitor and evaluate as you go on to deliver the event. And it's not routinely built into that, and therefore there's a clear opportunity to capitalise on sporting events and maximise those sporting benefits. And the UK, as I mentioned, with its strong pipeline of sporting events, is in a really strong position to build on what is already very strong global perception about UK sporting capability and how that relates to the wider economy. So what were our findings? Well, based on that extensive pipeline, we found and we estimated that if soft power, investment and trade benefits are concentrated on, they could deliver an extra $4 billion in economic benefit to the country over the next 10 years. And that's a 60% uplift on the more traditional economic benefits that we record through our normal evaluations, the sort of the visitor benefits, the spend, the employment that sits around those major sporting events. So that's a significant uplift. And in some respects it's a challenge because that money potentially is on the table, that contribution is on the table, and we need to think collectively how we best take advantage of that opportunity. And therefore, what were our key recommendations? Well, we categorise them broadly into 3 pillars. So firstly, around strategic planning, and this is really critical. So building in objectives about soft power right when you're doing game design, when you're thinking about the design of the games, your structure of the games, what you want to achieve by it. Putting in place accountability and ownership of delivery of those benefits, and thinking about how you then monitor and evaluate those benefits post-games to ensure the legacy of those games. It's part of that legacy building. The second pillar was around collaboration. And here, this is collaboration around all stakeholders involved in the delivery of events. As I said, local and central government, the events organisers, businesses, and the sports bodies, thinking around collaboration and coordination across the delivery of events in order to maximise the opportunity, make sure everybody is talking to each other. And then finally, it's around purposeful engagement. What is it you want to achieve with the events? Yes, make it a great sporting spectacle, but as we've seen with more recent sporting events, thinking about wider social, economic contributions that the events can deliver to answer some of the government objectives around levelling up. or other key priorities for society. So bringing all of that together and activating that through host cities and regions, there is a significant opportunity. So I guess, therefore, to conclude, I think we can demonstrate via this research that soft power can be driven by major sporting events, and that in turn can deliver investment and trade benefits. It is critical that it's built into the planning and delivery of those events in order that we maximise the opportunity that this country has from the pipeline events over the next 10 years. So thank you very much.
Fantastic, great results to see and lots to discuss, I'm sure. I'd like now to invite our panel members up onto the stage to join me. So delighted to welcome Edward Lord, Senior Elected Member for the City of London, Rupert Daniels, Director of Creative Lifestyle and Learning for the Department for International Trade, John Dutton, CEO of the Rugby League World Cup 2021, Anna Marie Phelps, Chair of the British Horse Riding Authority and Vice Chair of the British Paralympics Association, and finally Sally Munday, CEO of UK Sport. So thanks very much for joining us. I'll come and join you in the end as well. Bring you some water as well, because you might need it. All right, thank you so much for joining. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to ask a few questions just to get us going, and then we're going to go out to the audience as well. So, Edward, wanted to start with you this morning, if I can. Would like to hear a little bit more about why the City Corporation is involved in this area of work. Why does it matter for you?
Well, and as the Lord Mayor has said, we are passionately committed to promoting London and the UK as a place to do international trade. And we recognise that actually sport, with its amazing convening power, gives us the opportunity to meet people, to promote, and to do so in an informal, in a soft power way. And this was brought home to me back in 2012 when I was involved in supporting the corporation's engagement with the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. I was at the Olympic Park. I was sitting down having a quick bite for lunch, and Michel Barnier, the then Commissioner for Financial and Professional Services, came and sat next to me. That gave me the opportunity to land some amazing key messages with a major international stakeholder. It is opportunities like that that only come with the informal setting of things like major international sporting events. And that's why, post-2012, we've set up a sport engagement strategy. It's why we are delighted to work with UK Sport and with many stakeholders in this room in promoting major international sporting events here in the UK.
Thank you. And given what you've heard this morning, where next? Where do you see the City Corporation can play a vital role here?
Well, I think the report that EY have produced for us demonstrates really clearly that what we, I think, instinctively knew is absolutely tangibly deliverable. So I know that my elected colleagues, our current Lord Mayor and successive Lord Mayors after that, we will continue to engage. We have a very clear strategy. Sam Hutchins, our Sport Engagement Manager, who worked with me on 2012, has come back to work for the corporation, and he is available. We are available to work with all colleagues in this room and with the sector beyond to engage, to promote. If you've got a bid coming through and you want to wow some of the stakeholders who are going to come in and judge that bid, then let us work with you, perhaps put an event on here, but we will do our best to support UK Sport and stakeholders to get wins for the UK.
That's fantastic to hear, and I'm sure lots of conversations to be had on that. Thank you. Rupert, I'd like to come to you, if that's all right. Would really like to hear from you what you think the UK can offer in terms of expertise on the sort of major sporting event side, and particularly thinking about that from a trade perspective. How does that help?
Well, I mean, the UK's got a fantastic reputation all over the world for excellence in sport and generally across culture and creative industries. And we see that whether it's designers, architects, security experts, wayfinders, companies in immersive entertainment, film, television, they're in high demand for sporting events all over the world. So what we do at DIT is we work closely with DCMS from a domestic perspective and with all the partners in the room from a local, regional government perspective. But we're looking to make sure that the expertise which we have here in the UK is exported. You will have seen in the last few weeks, we've just announced the export strategy, got a new campaign to sort of get people motivated and involved in how you can actually get out into these markets. So if you take a place like the Dubai Expo, it's about £1.2 billion worth of UK companies have helped to build out the architecture, the entertainment that's going on, the wayfinding. It's amazing. And I think if another good example could be the Lima Games in Peru. So the Peruvian government worked with the UK on a government-to-government contract, which has gone way beyond sport. So it's not just the sporting architecture, the overlay, the event itself. It's infrastructures, it's road, it's communications, it's telecommunications. So sport is actually just a conduit to much, much greater activity in international trade and investment.
Absolutely. And thinking about sort of future sporting events that we hope to bring to home soil and beyond, what role do you think the department can play in helping to really maximise the trade opportunities from those?
Well, whenever we do an event, I mean, whether it's here or overseas, so in FIFA World Cups, for example, and at Olympics in Tokyo, there was supposed to be a UK house. And this kind of business along the side, and we saw the report, it's not often quantified and measured how, you can use sport. And the example you gave just then about Michel Barnier coming and sitting next to you, it brings people together. People from all over the world are going to be coming to the UK for the Rugby World Cup. They're going to be coming for the Euros. They're going to be coming for the Commonwealth Games. It's up to us to really put on a good show with our UK house, invite people, understand who's coming, do the networking in advance, and make sure actually what we're doing is we're getting great foreign direct investment, but also propelling exports far and wide.
Great, thank you. Once again, just the power of sport to bring people together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. John, can I ask you to talk a little bit about your lived experience, obviously, as a CEO of one of our big events? It'd be great to hear how the event has helped to leverage trade and investment opportunities, particularly in the host communities that event has been based in.
Yeah, good morning. I guess for us, the sport of rugby league is 126 years old, and we knew at the start of this journey that we had an opportunity like never before. So I think from a mindset perspective, having the opportunity, Rupert's words, using it as a conduit, a reason to have a conversation. We're very lucky. We have 18 host towns and cities, predominantly based in the north, but with a big footprint here in London, and many of them are big exporters. So pre the pandemic, it was the opportunity with our business advisory group, with our partners, to try and engage in that conversation. We've run a very successful international development programme in partnership with UK Sport. We've been halted in our tracks by the pandemic, but we visited Brazil, Nigeria, to talk to nations in West Africa, Papua New Guinea, Jamaica, Netherlands and Germany, to really use this opportunity to stimulate that conversation and hopefully form some of those links to our local communities.
Brilliant. And thinking about the kind of characteristics of major events in the UK, what contributes to that soft power, do you think? What are the ingredients for that?
We've learnt a lot, Naomi. Our journey from ideation to the trophies being lifted will be 7 years, 1 year more than we hoped for, but that's a completely different story. But we're going to use this opportunity now. I think the 4 Ps, people. We have some amazing talent here in the UK. I think the UK is synonymous with staging major global sporting events, but we've also got an opportunity to inspire people. We certainly want to do that. We have a very strong purpose about driving societal change. From a place perspective, the Minister mentioned 4 major events next year that are not London-centric. We have that big footprint here in London. We start our wheelchair tournament at the Copper Box, the Women's Euros finals at Wembley, but 4 major events that have an opportunity to celebrate place. And I point to Warrington and St Helens, 2 of our host towns and cities. I don't think they will ever stage a World Cup in any other sport than rugby league. This is a chance to shine on a global stage. And I think civic pride, so for that pride of showcasing the place. And then finally planet, not just from a sustainability perspective, and we've all got an opportunity now to contribute to the climate change agenda, but also with our international federation and making sure that the sport of rugby league is more sustainable in the future.
think, a really pertinent topic that we know sport is going to be sort of seizing and grappling, looking at how it can play a really active role and play its part in that sustainability agenda. Thank you, John. Anne-Marie, it'd be great to hear from you, from your sort of variety of roles. How is the UK perceived internationally as a sort of hosting territory for major events? What's been your experience?
Gosh, well, I think people love the UK for events. I mean, we probably do pageantry, royal patronage, all of that sort of thing better than almost anywhere else in the world, certainly better than anybody else in the Western world. And so that sort of pomp and circumstance and everything else that we bring to it. But I think that there is also a much more, it's no less serious, but there is also a real serious sort of side to it that other countries perceive that we will deliver, that we can deliver things logistically brilliantly, that we will do them really well, they trust us. And I think they see us as a nation that's very forward-looking. And I mean, if I look across my various roles that I do, I would not underestimate the fact that I've been through 2 election campaigns recently, both on a European basis for the European Olympic Committees and for chair of European Rowing. And both of them, I've spoken to people from across Europe at different levels. And what they want to do is, it's not because they want me there, it's because they want to know a little bit about the UK. They want to know how we work in a sporting environment, how we're able to deliver and engage people on sustainability, on gender equality, and all those sorts of things. So I think, there is a real longing for people to want to have a bit of what we've got and understand how it works, understand how our sporting system works, and understand how we engage better across that sort of area. And I really wouldn't underestimate the ability of people in our sports system to be fantastic ambassadors for the UK across all sorts of sectors. And I think people out there recognise that, we do this in a way that is to some extent independent of government, but working very closely and in partnerships. So they want to understand how those partnerships work. A lot of other nations, their sports sectors are much more closely tied in with their governments. They're often funded directly to their national Olympic committees, for example, whereas we have a very different system that enables us to focus on core bits of what we're delivering very well. So I think people that, they love the fact we do things well. We horse racing terms, and I know that's not a mega event, but we have annual events that draw millions of people into the UK every year. We are the premier nation for training and racing. In Olympic sport, we've delivered what's still really, to some extent, been the most amazing games. In 2012, people still look to us for that legacy. And I think looking forward, there are lots of opportunities out there for us to host other mega events. And I'd put a bid in for the European Games with my European hat on. But, I've been asked to sit on that working group because they see us as somebody that's capable of doing that. And we have an amazing opportunity over the next 4 years with it's not directly a sporting event, but thanks to the City of London for supporting the Secretariat, 4 years opportunity for us to influence the way women in sport are viewed and are brought into decision-making through the International Working Group on Women in Sport, which we'll be hosting here from 2022 to 26, and really will be using these fantastic facilities. Thank you, City of London, for that.
So again, a sporting system that is ultimately all about great people,
Yep.
isn't it? Absolutely. And we've heard about so many of the benefits today from hosting major events. What do you think are the most useful steps for us to take in really harnessing those and making the most of them?
Well, I think the report sets those out, and it's really quite straightforward. We really need to work in partnership across the sporting sector, but particularly with businesses. We need to work with the business sectors within government, but also with City of London and with the major corporates. And we need to develop a proper, integrated, strategic plan for how we are going to use these opportunities and not waste them, because it's as much of a risk to ignore them and walk away from them. So we just need to get together, and we need to be much more thoughtful about it, and to realise that if we don't do this, we're going to be left behind. We know about France. I know that even in Tokyo, when there were no spectators and it was really difficult to get across, the Italian National Olympic Committee, Casa Italia, their equivalent of UK House, they spent 7.5 million euros on setting that up in Tokyo just to showcase Italian businesses and Italian industry, and to do that and to entertain people from Tokyo. So, we've missed that opportunity to some extent. We have that opportunity in Paris. We did it really well in London. But we need to continue to do that sort of investment and have those sorts of events and opportunities with sport.
So being really purposeful about this and
Absolutely.
building great partnership and collaboration throughout.
And a real strategic plan so that we know where to go to and we know how to link in.
Great, thank you. And then finally, Sally, as sort of CEO of UK Sport, what opportunities do you see as a result of the sort of findings and recommendations today? Where do you see the big sort of challenges and opportunities for us for the future?
Well, I think the report's really helpful for us because of the sort of independence of EY doing it, and good research is something that then enables us to make good decisions. I think there's opportunities for us internationally. The Minister talked about the role that we can play in promoting the government agenda in global Britain. But domestically, I think there's some really good opportunities. I mean, Anna-Marie talked about how we work more closely with the city to unlock more business partnerships and the connections that are huge potential in terms of connecting sport more closely with business. But I also think domestically the opportunity with working with other departments, which potentially sport hasn't always traditionally worked with, to really expand what people really see that sport can do for the whole of the UK, not just in sporting terms. And I think it's brilliant that we've got the other department here, because I think them being part of this demonstrates that actually sport is much bigger than simply sport. And I think the soft power that is illustrated through the report, the opportunities there are huge. I was also really interested in the comments that John was making around the role that they want to play in their event around the impact socially. From a UK sport perspective, we're just embarking, as you know, on our new strategy, which is about creating the greatest decade of extraordinary sporting moments. And why are we doing that? A big part of why we're doing that is because we want to have societal impact. We want to have a positive impact on society, and major events play a huge role in that. The other opportunity I think we've got is that there's been references talked about sort of the mega events, and the Minister talked about the mega events, but I also don't think we should lose sight, and there's a number of people in this room who'll be involved not necessarily in a mega event, but a major event for what might be deemed a sort of not such high profile sport. And I think one of the things that we have the opportunity to do is to not look at those sports through the lens of what's of interest to the British public, but what is of interest to other nations. So there's some of the sports events that we're hosting over the next decade, which might be perceived in this country to be sports that are not as popular as some of the bigger sports, but are hugely popular in some of the countries that we want to trade with. And actually we can use those opportunities of sports that are popular in other nations. So, I mean, I could keep going. The opportunities are huge. The brilliant thing is having really good research to fall back on. So, as was said at the beginning, it's not just what we instinctively thought, as Edward said, it's actually now, from research, got some really good evidence behind it.
So this actually gives us a real foundation, doesn't it, to build this into our plans and think really purposefully about how we harness these benefits going forward in the future. Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to turn now to the audience. We had a number of you send in some questions beforehand, and I'm hoping you're going to be in the audience, so we'll give it a try, and then we'll open it up to the floor as well. I believe we have some roving microphones as well. So I wanted to see if we have Roland Jack in the audience, had a question about ensuring events are attractive to hosts. If you wouldn't mind just standing up, sharing who you are, where you're from, and your question with us, please, that'd be great.
Hello, Roland Jack, a company called iTrust Sport, focused on sports governance. There are major sports events in some traditional sports which perhaps are not very successful commercially or necessarily in delivering other impacts. Do you have a message to rights holders about how they can make their events more attractive for potential hosts?
Thank you. John, could we come to you from your sort of experience of events?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. What happens off the field for us is as important as what happens on the field. We have a strong social purpose. We set up a social impact programme. We don't talk about legacy. We talk about the social impact that we're going to deliver before the trophies are lifted, and that's across many areas, mental fitness, culture, education. And we have seen the commercial benefit because we are a values-led organisation. We have a number of commercial partners that have come to have that conversation with us, and it goes back to what I said earlier about civic pride, people and place, delivering this in local communities. I'm a huge advocate of the sport of rugby league, but none of that's important in the work we're doing in local communities. So whether that's through a programme we're doing with dementia, whether that's a programme about bringing memories to local people. We opened a heritage project last week. We're just using the event as a vehicle to do that, and we have engaged in many more conversations than a traditional approach of simply delivering the event and looking after the athletes. We'll do that, and we'll do that very well across 61 games and 21 venues. But what happens off the field from a social impact perspective, I think, can help drive different conversations and ultimately commercial success.
So it sounds actually that putting that sort of social impact piece at the heart of events is really important, actually, in terms of thinking about the long term and how it can impact on society, on communities, on the environment, on the economy as part of that.
I think having a purpose, and I think every event can have a authentic purpose. We've chosen social impact to make a difference in the north of England. 85% of our tournament will be delivered in the north of England, and as part of the government's levelling up agenda, we will make a contribution to that. But I firmly believe every event going forward can play a part in societal benefit.
And from your experience with that event, how did you define your purpose? How did you define where to focus? There's so much impact you could have. Where do you choose, how do you choose where to play?
Yeah, we've had the privilege of time, we've had the privilege of government investment, and not everyone has that. But we took some time to understand how we can make the greatest contribution in local communities. And this event, Warrington, St Helens, Leeds, Hull, we started our tournament in Newcastle, we finished with all 3 finals in Manchester. What a wonderful opportunity to showcase place and for those local communities to stand tall. So that helped us define social benefit, and a lot of our programmes are way beyond rugby league. 8,000 young people will have mental fitness education, and that was determined before the pandemic. Of course, when the pandemic's come round, that's probably been never more relevant than ever before. So we will play a small part, and we're really keen, like the fantastic report, is to capture some of that and to pass it on to other people who will do bigger and better things than we have done.
So define your purpose and be really clear about where you can make a unique
100%.
contribution. Great, thank you, John. Also had a question from Randy Haynes, if he's in the audience. Give us a wave if so. Hi, Randy. Do you want to stand up and share your question with the panel?
Hello, Randy Haynes. I'm a consultant with MyOmni, which is a technology company that also goes into sports betting, which is where my question's aimed. So we've long been a powerhouse in sports betting, especially when you look across the world, what's happening in the States, for instance, where they're taking a lot of our expertise. Previous to this, in Philippines, etc., 150,000 jobs has been born in the grey market through sports betting. I just wondered how sports betting played into, if at all, in the panel's agenda with regards to this soft power.
Panel, who would like to share a view?
I'm happy to kick off. I think we've got some excellent examples in the last sort of 2 decades of where we've done bidding extremely successfully, and examples where we've perhaps not got it quite right. And there are various reasons for when we've got it right and when we haven't. I think one of the things, thinking about what Anna-Marie was saying about how highly regarded this nation is around event hosting, is that I think there is a really fine line, isn't there, between being good at what you do and being confident and willing to share, and where that line slips over into arrogance and thinking you have a right to host things. And I think that what UK sport has been able to do, long before I've been here, and I've only been in the role a couple of years, but over the last decade or so, led by Simon Morton in our team, I think what we've developed is a huge amount of understanding and learning about how to use bidding for the bid itself, but also actually to make sure that it's also part of our longer term relationship building. And so that when you're not successful in a bid, because you're not always going to be successful through sometimes no fault of your own, you don't leave yourself with a very difficult place to return to. So I think the bidding part is hugely important to this, because it sets the tone for how we want to do business, and it tells the world how we want to go about our business. So I think it's hugely, hugely important in what we do. And really interesting, I think, also when we're thinking about hosting some of the really big mega events, whether that be the Football World Cup or, you know, could we decide at some point in the future to consider another bid for another Olympic and Paralympic Games, I think we need to go back to one of the things that's in this report, which is about collaboration, and how do we collaborate domestically to put in good bids and build good relationships internationally, but also how do we collaborate internationally with allies and partners that would want to see those events come back to this country. So for me, it's hugely important. I'm sure others may have additional views.
I'm happy to add that mega sports events are expensive to stage. We're a special purpose vehicle. We have a start, we have a middle, and we have an end. And it, I guess, comes back to my previous answer that they've got to deliver more. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And when we talk about economic benefit, our event will deliver that, and other events will. But it's got to be greater than that. And I think from a bidding perspective, we're seeing less and less bids across the world. It comes back to why we're here today, that events can deliver against other different agendas if we look through a different lens.
Really helpful, thank you. I'm going to open the floor to other questions. So if you have something you'd like to ask the panel, raise your hand. Thank you. Can we get a mic to the gentleman? If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your organisation and who your question's for, please.
Thanks, Naomi. Is that working?
Yes.
Morning, panel. Andy Rice from Major Sporting Events, Major Events International. Just like to ask Edward, more than anyone else. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the City of London and UK Sport on an excellent report. Well done, EY. I think it's about time that this area of soft power is highlighted. Edward, what are you doing as a city to encourage international rights holders to come to London? There's a kind of irony that as an organisation with offices half a mile from here, that we're representing cities around the world to do exactly that, but we haven't really had a conversation with you. So what is London doing at the moment to proactively go out and promote everything that London has to offer?
Our Lord Mayor, who remains with us, spends round about 100 days of his 365 days in office travelling around the world, promoting the UK as a place to do business. And one of the key messages, and particularly this year because Vincent is a lawyer, is the fact that this is a safe place to do business. And so in terms of sports rights and intellectual property rights generally, this is a great place to do business. It's a great place to have your contracts based. You know, the laws of England and Wales, the UK courts, are probably the best place in the world to have these things judged. We probably need to be saying more about that from a sports rights perspective, and I'm sure that the Lord Mayor sitting here will make sure that those messages actually are crafted into the things that he talks about when promoting UK PLC around the world. And certainly we would be happy to have a conversation with you, and please do talk to Sam about what more we can do to ensure we are promoting those rights.
A big part of today is going to be all about conversation and future partnership for sure. Thank you, Edward. Other questions, please raise your hand. Yes, gentleman on the left, thank you.
Hi, Sean Cottrell, CEO of Law in Sport. Fantastic.
There
yeah, there you go. So you teed me up. Thank you very much. So one of the things that we are sort of pioneers in is, say, for British horse racing, a best kept secret is our integrity. And, you know, we have dealt with a lot of issues in sport in this country over the recent years, but we've addressed those issues, and I would argue that we're pioneers in many of those areas. What does the panel think about how we could utilise the opportunities to engage with the legal community and other lawyers around the world in part of this soft power around major events to actually explain our expertise, not only from hosting, but also in terms of the operation of sport in its various different roles? Thank you.
Rupert, would you mind starting?
Yeah, I can take some of that. And I think that's generally the work that we do in the Department for International Trade. We've got a sports advisory group, which on that group you've got people like Premier League and Wimbledon, but you've also got a number of event companies, designers, architects, software engineers, Formula E from a sustainability perspective as well. So what we do, so we're planning missions out, for example, to LA28 in advance of, you've got a 7-year cycle there. So we're looking, just as you've been working on this for 7 years, John, we're looking to say, Okay, so here's, it's almost like a beauty parade, really. So we're taking and kind of matchmaking companies. We've just done the same in the creative industries in Dubai. We took 27 companies out and match-made them with a mix of real estate developers, small developers, government institutions. And I think that's really what, but we can't do that on our own. You know, so what we actually need to work with everybody across the sports ecology and just make sure, whether it's the legal profession, designers, architects, and what's really interesting at the moment, and you know, we're all getting a new lexicon with things like the metaverse and NFTs. You know, these are things which you need to address in legal contracts, whether you're doing a small-scale event or a large-scale event. So the legal profession is of course, very interesting. But we all are learning it, and everything's coming together. So the experience I had out in Dubai, I mentioned it earlier, and the Lord Mayor was there as well a few weeks ago. £1.2 billion at that. You can call that a major event. You know, it's an expo. So British companies and UK companies are the most successful in the expo site across the whole site. And that's because it's all coming together. And the kind of technologies that you see there are fan engagement technologies, they're wayfinding. They can be applied to any environment. And you see this in film production, in television production. It's all come from the games industry. So what we're seeing is, you know, traditional companies who perhaps have been specialized in one area actually have an opportunity much, much greater than just in sports. So you could say the same for the legal profession. You know, these kind of contracts are actually entertainment contracts, they're creative contracts, they're metaverse and NFT contracts.
Edward, do you want to come in?
Well, yeah, because actually this is an area where we've been working with the department. So only 2 weeks ago, we were delighted to welcome the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Maryland in the United States, because Baltimore is bidding to be a host city for the FIFA World Cup. And they wanted to come and meet a range of businesses that could potentially work with them. And you know, so we were pleased to bring them together, working with the Department for International Trade. And that again is the kind of thing that we can do at a micro level as well as a macro level.
Anna Marie, do you have a view to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point, Sean, so thank you. And British Horse Racing is certainly viewed as one of the best sort of governing bodies worldwide. I think there's a couple of things we can do. I mean, one is this report, I hope, will help us to develop the strategy we need that will help people to link in and will make it much easier for people to know what to do with the information they've got and where to find and to link in with things like that. But I think we need to be better at selling the good news ourselves about the amazing systems and processes and the great culture that we have in the UK. And we tend to focus on the negatives all the time. When you look in the media about sport, you know, you see the negatives that are out there, the things that are going wrong. But actually, they're in the paper because we're putting them right. And in very many other countries, they're being swept under the carpet. So we are doing a fantastic job in sport, I think, on the integrity level, on the partnership level, on the building relationships, and you know, as the UK, we are enormously well respected. We mustn't forget that, and we need to build on it and use it. And I think this report will really help us to do that in a more constructive sort of framework type of way.
So a responsibility for all of us to acknowledge the progress and the leadership that we're showing across the sporting system. Thank you, Anna Marie. Any other questions from the room? Yes, gentleman on the right there. Thank you.
Good morning, Wyn Fanshawe from Capture the Event. Fascinating presentations and discussions, thank you very much. I haven't had a chance to read the report yet, so I'm only going on the headlines that came across this morning, and I hope I'm missing something that the panel can address. But until Sally mentioned it, social impacts hasn't really had a mention. I worked on Scotland's major event strategy before UK and London got its act together, and it was about social, environmental and economic impacts. We're coming out of a pandemic, we hope, but it's going to be around, and what that's done is, amongst other things, is force consumers and fans to expect organisations to balance profits with social responsibility. And surely this is a great opportunity to bring in commercial partners who are looking to really address society challenges and looking 10 years ahead. There was a very good piece in the Lancet, published in the Lancet, 21st of July, which was about how major sporting events should and could be linking with the healthcare services and the life science. And I don't see any of that representation yet, but I may be wrong, I haven't read the report. How influential do you think those social impacts are going to become over the next 5 to 10 years?
Who would like to start with that one? Sally, do you want to start?
I'm happy to start. So I mentioned earlier about our new strategy at UK Sport and our intention to create the greatest decade. And we're very focused on 3 ambitions. And one of those ambitions is about impact and social impact specifically. And we've had quite a lot of discussion and we've reached agreement, because if I asked the room about where should we have social impact, we'd probably end up with lots of different answers. We'd end up with some commonality, but there'd be lots of different answers. And we've landed on 3 really important areas where we feel sport, both performance sport, but also events, can play a key role. One of them is about an impact on physical and mental well-being. It's an obvious space that we can play in. One is around diversity and inclusion, and we think there's a really important role for sport to play in that space. And the third is around the impact that we can have around sustainability. And major events is really important to that. And obviously what we do at UK Sport in terms of investing in many of the major events that come to this country and support the bidding for hosting those events is we're looking really carefully about how events can, to John's point from the outset, demonstrate how they're going to contribute to those things. So it isn't simply about the economic impact. It isn't simply about the desire to bring the event here just to make people happy for seeing that sport. And we're very clear at UK Sport about our both the opportunity that we have moving forwards, but also the responsibility that we have as a leadership body in this space to make sure that everything that we do, we are thinking through the lens of what can the impact be. We love major events, we love hosting them, we love winning medals, but we want major events and winning medals to have a great social impact. We don't want it just for doing it, we want to have an impact on society, and we believe there's a huge opportunity to do so. And I think most of the partners that we're already in, the events that we're already investing in, they're on that journey with us. And I think there's, to go back to the earlier question that was asked about commercial investment, I think increasingly commercial investors and partners are seeking this. That's what they're looking for. And so it feels like a huge opportunity for me over the next decade.
And just to build on what Sally said, I think that social impact is not just the social impact we deliver in this country, it is the change that can be seen that's built on. So each time we do a major event that breaks barriers and, has increased either equality or sustainability, it raises the goals and the barriers for the next time that event is somewhere else in the world. So actually our influence globally is increased as well as a nation, and that's why people do want to employ British industry people. It's why they want to bring in consultants from the UK. It's why they want to give events or vote people onto to committees, because they see us as having those ambitions and being able to deliver against them and really making a change.
And those things internationally are also ways of engaging more people domestically. So a lot of the events that we invest in are also looking at how they can have an impact internationally. If I just give an example of an event that I was involved in before I started this job with the Hockey World Cup, a big part of that bid in the first place was around us doing a huge project out in Africa and working with a number of the West African nations where hockey is relatively small to try and use hockey as a way for building social change. And we focused a lot of energy in Ghana, and we went to places in Ghana where, sport was really, really limited, and we were able to engage the, sort of 800,000 people that play hockey in this country to donate old sticks. And we shipped thousands and thousands and thousands of sticks out to Ghana so that kids who hadn't previously ever had exposure to playing sport, it didn't matter that it was hockey, it just happened to be, were given the opportunity and given equipment to be able to play, and it engaged people over here with the event and feeling like they were doing something really positive, but it enabled us to have a really positive impact in Ghana and West Africa and actually change some of the conversations that we were having about hosting, but also then from an international trade point of view, changes conversations that we're having at political level, gave us the opportunity to meet with ministers in Ghana. So a lot of the events that we invest in will have that international thread, as Anna-Marie said.
Rupert, from a sort of departmental perspective, how important is the social impact agenda when you're thinking about building those trade relationships?
Well, it's hugely important, and you know, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about you know, one of the biggest drivers of soft power is education, and if you look at the reputation the UK's education sector has, that, you know, that's arguably as big, if not bigger, than sport. So the fusion, I think, of sport and education, and as we're talking about Ghana, I recall, you know, something I did in a past life, working with Chelsea Football Club and with Michael Essien, who was the captain at the time, and captain of Ghana as well. So we worked on a partnership for literacy in the village that Michael was from. Nearly all the children didn't even go to school. So we created a literacy program with a foundation, and we rolled that out. And so like 10,000, we worked with Pearson on an education program. But I think that's the beauty of this, you know, across government, you know, we work with FCDO, with DFE, and any bid, for example, the feasibility was talked about for the 2030 World Cup, you know, should not only have a great legacy for the UK, but actually that should transcend the UK and reach out, and I think education is one of the best ways that we can do that. And then that taps in very nicely to the UN sustainability goals, and so how do we drive that agenda, whether it's sustainability, whether it's education, whether it's women's rights, you know, getting girls into education is another massive thing. So sport can do all those things if you channel it in the right way. And I think any bid we make for any major events, you know, has to factor that in as well.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. Probably got time for one or two more questions if you want to raise your hands. Yeah, gentleman here on the left. If we could have a mic, please. Here's some. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Julian Kelly from Clean Event Services. We, obviously, as the name perhaps suggests, we provide cleaning at major events across the UK predominantly. I think we could all probably recognise, if we pick up any newspaper, that there are weaknesses in the hospitality and services sectors in the UK at the moment, when previously these were strong selling points for our country. Does the panel recognise that a dilution of our prominence in these sectors, does that dilute what we're trying to sell as a country in the global market?
Let's start. John, could you share a perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some astonishing challenges in the hospitality sector, and obviously that's been felt by venues across the UK. We have 21 venues. We've reached out to them, and we absolutely appreciate challenges. We're also talking to some unions at the moment. Is that a barrier to the UK securing more major events? I don't think it's a barrier. I think it's a challenge, and I think it's about a partnership approach. Going back to what I said earlier, major mega sports events are incredibly expensive to stage, and there has to be a better solution found, a better cocktail of funding that delivers greater benefit. So I certainly recognise the challenge. No simple answers to address them, and certainly something that I think collaboration is needed.
Lots of partnership and collaboration messaging coming through today. Thank you. Time for a final question. Anybody have one they'd like to share with the room? Yeah, gentleman in the chat there. Thank you.
Hi there, Jamie from the BOA. A question about the divide between soft power and kind of the immediate trade impacts. Rupert, you mentioned two examples of Lima and Dubai, about how the UK were able to ship internationally and work internationally. Do you see it as a responsibility of UK-hosted events to attract international trade rather than just work to provide our own local services as well? And do you see, especially with Commonwealth Games coming up and our historical links in the Commonwealth, that being a greater priority?
Well, absolutely. I think it's a bit of a balance and a mix. What you want is for, and we wouldn't like it, for example, if the Olympic Games in Paris was only exclusively open to French companies. A lot of companies here would be pretty annoyed. So I think we have to take the same approach. It's an open market, but where we're great is that we very often have some of the best companies who've got the leading solutions for the particular problem that the organisers are facing. So it's a balance, but I think what we have an opportunity to do when we're hosting an event in our backyard is, I know there are sometimes some legal issues around what you can and can't say around the companies that are providing the solutions, but you can showcase. And we can talk, particularly after the event, about the huge range of different services that the companies provided to those events. So you always want to get a good balance of foreign direct investment and also making sure that the local community and indeed the UK as a whole is benefiting. So I don't think there's a clear-cut answer, but I think a balance is the best I can give.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time and I want to make sure there's plenty of time for conversations afterwards, so I'm going to bring us formally to a close now. I think what we've heard today is, many of us have known for a long time there's just such a huge variety of benefits and impacts that sport can have, and it really does touch lives and change lives. And today gives us yet more ammunition and evidence to show the impact that sport can have, not just on society, but on our economy and our global position and reputation as well. So a big thank you to all those who have been involved in that research and giving us that platform to take forward. To Anna Marie's point, I think we all have a real responsibility to champion that and to share that and to talk more about the positive impacts that we're having. We've heard very much today around the need to be purposeful and really focused on the impact that we can have and to really build that into our plans for major events and beyond as we build as a sporting system together in the decades ahead. As Sally's alluded to, we at UK Sport have a mission to create the greatest decade of extraordinary sporting moments, the greatest yet. We can't do that alone. Partnership and collaboration are going to be absolutely essential, and we look forward to working with many of you in the weeks and years ahead. So thank you very much to our speakers for joining us this morning. Thank you very much for our panel and to the City of London for hosting us today. Do please stay behind for a drink and a chance to have a conversation with colleagues here, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.